Get your tissues ready. The Last of Us takes the phrase better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all to heartbreaking new heights. When it comes to The Last of Us, tears have always been a given. It's a post-apocalyptic show about a world torn apart by a brain-controlling fungus, and the entire first episode is dedicated to Joel's ridiculously tragic backstory that involves his teen daughter literally dying in his arms.
Come on, baby girl. Come on.
It's a post-apocalyptic world. Tragedy is the price of admission. And it's not that anyone thought being familiar with the game would make them immune to the sadness. Fans just hoped it would give them an advantage. At the very least, game fans should know when to reach for the box of Kleenex, right? Wrong. Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin's HBO adaptation is full of surprises, and the latest comes in the form of Bill and Frank, a survivalist duo who viewers both meet and lose in the third episode of the series a long time. This is where things get complicated. Even though everyone who watches the episode cries much more than expected when these two characters appear, their story ends on a happier note than it does in the original game. That may seem a little hard to believe, given that the episode ends with the couple dead in their bedroom, but remember that happiness is relative in this zombie-ridden universe. Watching their story play out in the series may have collectively shattered the audience's hearts, but at least there was something so real and worthy of our affection that we could be devastated by its loss. In the game, Bill and Frank's relationship is much more bleak. First off, the details of Bill and Frank's relationship are much more peripheral in the game. They never even interact on screen, and the romance is only implied through Joel's conversations with Bill. When Ellie and Joel make it to Lincoln, Bill is still alive but flying solo. Players get to spend time with him as the crew searches for a working car. Along the way, he reveals that he once had a partner who abandoned him. Eventually, players stumble upon a house and discover that Bill's former partner met a bleak end. After making his way across town, Frank hung himself. Scoping out the area will lead to finding Frank's suicide note, declaring his hatred for Bill.
So that's how you feel. Well, me too, Frank.
Frank, it turns out, was trying to get away from Bill and their life in his closed-off town. On his way out, a horde of infected got too close and Frank was bitten. Before his brain could succumb to the cordyceps infection, he decided to take his own life. His parting words to Bill? Well, let's just say they were far from warm. His letter reads, "Well, Bill, I doubt you'd ever find this note because you were too scared to ever make it to this part of town. But if for some reason you did, I want you to know I hated your guts. I grew tired of this town and your set-in-your-ways attitude. I wanted more from life than this, and you could never get that. And that stupid battery you kept moaning about, I got it. But I guess you were right. Trying to leave this town will kill me. Still better than spending another day with you. Good luck, Frank." So is long time really sad? Absolutely. But Bill and Frank loving each other enough to stay together even in death is a much happier story than Frank running off, getting infected, committing suicide, and leaving an "I hate you" note behind. More importantly, this change to their story becomes a beautiful runway for Joel's journey with Ellie to continue. For the game version of Joel, seeing the end of Frank and Bill's relationship essentially reaffirms what he already believes. There's no point in caring for anyone in this crumbling world. Isn't that what he learned from the loss of Sarah? And sure enough, Bill makes sure to communicate his stance on the matter. He tells Joel in the game that he had a partner at one point, but that it wasn't worth the risk.
And in this world, that sort of good for one thing, getting you killed.
It's easy to be awestruck by the cleverness of this adaptation. Instead of turning Bill and Frank into a cautionary tale of what not to do, they become a model for exactly what Joel is failing to understand about the world. Joel refuses to forge connections with the potential to shatter him. Despite his partnership with Tess, he kept her at arm's length. As for Ellie, he refuses to see her as anything more than some walking, talking cargo. He doesn't want to be attached to anyone, and certainly not a snarky little girl who reminds him of his past. So the show makes Bill into a cautionary tale of another kind. After all, he's been where Joel is right now. He kept himself protected, well-fed, and emotionally unattached. But in the end, none of that matches up to the life he has once he lets Frank into his bubble. Sure, they bicker, unable to agree on some details of their life in the town. And yes, caring comes at a terrifying cost. Suddenly there's something besides himself that requires protection. But that companionship and love is so much greater than a safe life of solitude. So much so that when Frank decides to end things, Bill can't imagine going back to how things were. Bill tells Joel in his note, doing his best to impart his hard-won wisdom, "I used to hate the world, and I was happy when everyone died. But I was wrong, because there was one person worth saving." If Joel is willing to open himself up to loving someone like that, then yes, it might just end in sorrow, like the calamity of Bill and Frank dying in each other's arms. But according to Bill, that sure beats a life of bitter solitude.